Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Ewart, and it's my privilege to spend the next approximately 20 minutes with you speaking on a topic that has changed my life, which is why I'm so passionate about it, the topic of personal growth. Each one of you on this webinar today, or the replay, is unique. Wouldn't you agree with that? Now, how many of you believe you've reached your full potential in your life or in your business? I bet we all believe we have room to grow. I know I have room to grow. Do you want to be a better person tomorrow than you are today? Growing yourself daily guarantees that you will be better than you were the day before. Now, before we dive into personal growth and making ourselves better, approximately 20 minutes is not enough time for us to do a deep dive into all the facets of personal development. I did a Google search just on the phrase personal growth. Guess how many entries Google came up with for personal growth? There was over 750 million. That's right, 750 million Google entries just on personal growth. So I want to be clear with you up front, right from the very start. We will not cover everything there is to know about personal growth in this session together, and that's fair enough. With that many entries on the topic of personal growth, I think the best way for us to begin is by going straight to the top of the personal growth guru charts. Wouldn't you agree? One of my friends and mentors happens to be at the top of this list. He has written several New York Times best-selling books on leadership and personal growth. In fact, he has written more than 100 books and sold more than 26 million copies. His name is Dr. John C. Maxwell. His book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, is one of those New York Times bestsellers and is an outstanding must-have resource that I recommend you add to your library for reaching your full potential. We will spend the rest of our time together exploring two of John's 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. The two laws that we will cover are the law of pain and the law of the rubber band. These two laws are important aspects for your personal growth because the law of pain tells us that we will all experience growing pains, life lessons requiring some form of pain management. How we handle these painful moments affect our growth. In the law of the rubber band, in order for you to grow to your full potential, you have to stretch beyond your current comfort zone. Stretching grows your athletic muscles and your personal growth muscles. Are you ready to go and grow? Let's begin with the law of pain. The law of pain says that the good management of bad experiences leads to great growth and is necessary to grow. This law is a tough pill to swallow because pain is something we naturally avoid. But this law is about teaching you and I how to turn our bad experiences into positive steps leading to our success. Now, we all have them, and let me guess, no one likes them, right? Let's do a little experiment. Raise your hand if you love bad experiences. Okay, now raise your hand if you like bad experiences then. Okay, how about if you maybe, kinda, sorta, wouldn't mind a bad experience or two? Yeah. John quotes John McDowell in his chapter on the law of pain, saying, "Every problem introduces a person to himself." Every problem introduces a person to himself. The bottom line with this law is that everyone has bad experiences. We can't avoid them. Some of us run from them, some do whatever little bit they can to deal with them, and others embrace them. No matter what, still, we can't avoid them. The last in that group, those who embrace, are the people, the leaders, who choose to learn from difficult and very challenging experiences. I remember the first time I spoke at an event for a colleague of mine. I had planned everything out and had rehearsed what I thought was enough. But once I started talking, I went blank. I felt the humiliation that was rising within me, and I wasn't quite sure what to do. I could tell the people in the audience sensed my hesitation to continue. It was a very painful situation to be in. My voice started trembling, and I felt as if my whole body was shaking. Have you ever experienced that? Fortunately, I remembered and I switched to a story that I knew well. After I told the story, I was able to get back on track and finish the speech. From that point on, if I thought I had rehearsed enough, I rehearsed even more. We have all had bad experiences. You've heard the saying that life is filled with ups and downs. The problem with most of us is we just want the ups and ups. We do everything in our power to avoid bad situations, yet they'll always find us. It's hard taking it one day at a time when you feel like the day just attacked you all at once. And it's true that no one likes bad experiences. Look at how many of you raised your hand when I asked if you loved bad experiences. But if you learn to manage your bad experiences well, then you get something good out of them. Plus, you have great war stories to tell. So many people take the should have, would have, or could have path when dealing with bad experiences. Consider some of the types of pain we face. The pain of incompetence, which says, I should have seen that coming. The pain of financial loss, if I could only get that back. The pain of not being number one. I would be at the top if it wasn't for blank. The pain of change. They don't know what they're doing. They should have listened to me. And so on. We know that very few people, quite honestly, can take positive experiences from bad experiences. Many people become bitter from having bad experiences over and over. Few people become better. I want to help you find ways to become better. What I've just shared with you are a few examples of what John calls your pain files. The pain of incompetence, the pain of not being number one, and so on. But just because we have our pains in files like these doesn't mean we should ignore them. We keep files so we can remember and grow from experiences such as these, to look back on, to refer to. We need to turn our pains into gains. We do this by choosing a positive life stance. By this, I mean we need to look for the positive lessons in every experience. There is always something positive, but you may not see it at the time of the experience. When you live your life with a positive life stance, you find that the good will become better and the bad will not be as bad as it seemed in the moment. One way is to embrace and develop our creativity. Neil Donald Walsh says, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Use the gift of a bad experience to open your mind and challenge yourself to use your own brilliant creativity. Embrace the value of your bad experiences. You have a choice. You can look at your bad life experiences and be set back from them, or learn from them. It's been said that in life there are winners and there are losers. Aside of the final score in a sporting event, I would say for leaders, there are winners and there are learners. One of the biggest pushes we get going forward from bad experiences is making good changes after learning from bad experiences. A bend in the road is not an end in the road unless you forget to make the turn. What happens to us is rarely the end of the road. However, many of us focus on our feelings about what has happened to us rather than focus on our thoughts and actions that will lead us in a better direction. The next time you are faced with a bad experience, remind yourself that you are on the cusp of change. Check your emotions and use them to be a catalyst for change and growth, not for them to paralyze you. Now let me give you just one more thing to think about related to the law of pain, directly connected to leadership. In other words, how do we lead from the law of pain? And how do you apply this law specifically to your life? So let's look at that, applying this law specifically to your life. There are several questions you can explore. but in this limited time, let me give you a few to think about. How do you deal with pain? Do you do anything and everything possible to avoid pain at all? Or do you endure it since you know you have to get through it some way or another? Or do you work to embrace it and remain positive despite having bad experiences? We all know people that do any and all of these, right? Thinking about where you are on the spectrum of how you view bad experiences can guide you in taking great advantage of growing from such pain. We know that getting an understanding of what has happened and recognizing the emotions you have because of these experiences is the start to creating a positive action going forward. There can be numerous pathways going forward. Here are a few things you can do. Get input from others. Understand your emotions. Identify a specific desired change you want to have. Think about what positive change you can influence, either in yourself and or in others. Above all, remember that personal growth requires action. If you haven't been acting when a bad experience happens, then you're simply avoiding. Personal growth requires action. It's as simple and as difficult as that. Don't let another painful experience go without learning and growing from it. Now let's look at another one of my favorite laws of growth, the law of the rubber band. The thesis for this law is growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. If I were to ask the question, do you want to grow? How would you respond? I believe it would be a resounding yes. I want to grow. But the truth of the matter is that for most of us, we avoid any form of pressure because we don't want to feel uncomfortable. You see, we have been taught that comfort is a place to be desired and strived for. May I introduce a new thought? Okay, here goes. All living things grow, and that growth requires stretching. John says, true life begins at the end of our comfort zone, and we arrive there by stretching. Rubber bands are only useful when they are stretched. You would not be where you are and who you are today without some form of tension or stretching taking place. For many, the thought is, when I graduate from high school or college, I've arrived and I can now stop being stretched. I mean, after all, I'm grown now, right? I think the truth is that we should continue growing throughout our lives. But with growth comes discomfort and initially pain. What we felt in school was a tension to do enough to get that diploma. It can easily be described as the tension between where you are and where you wanted to be, couldn't it? So what did you do? You did just enough to get by, right? Perhaps some of you are like me. All I wanted to do was get out of school because my thought was, once I get out of school, I will not have to feel all this pressure. I mean, after all, where and when will I use all this stuff anyway? How do we develop our potential? It's quite simple, by getting out of our comfort zone. By continually stretching, not only physically, but emotionally, intellectually, and even spiritually. John gives us 7 benefits to tension that I'd like to share with you. Now, time does not permit us to explore these benefits at length, so here's a quick overview. Few people ever want to be stretched. It is literally like saying to your employer, I know I'm overqualified, but I promise to only use half of my ability. Most people use only a fraction of their ability and rarely, if ever, try to reach their full potential. David Godine claims that only 32% of the US population has ever been in a bookstore. Why is this statistic so alarming? Because we are not willing to read, to learn, and to grow. When was the last time you learned something new for the first time? Settling for the status quo. Most people are satisfied to settle into the comfort zone of life, falling into familiar patterns and habits they've learned from those around them. Being in the comfort zone may feel good and feel safe, but it will lead to mediocrity and ultimately dissatisfaction. It takes real courage to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. No one remembers average people. Stretching is an inside job. The real process of growth begins with your thoughts. Those thoughts then become words, and words become actions. James Allen says, you cannot travel within and stand still without. Think about it. All life, except for mankind, grows to its full potential. It's only mankind that circumvents the process. For example, how tall will a tree grow? A tree doesn't decide to stop growing. It continues growing all its life. This inside job is an internal measurement that allows you to evaluate where you are against what you're capable of. Stretching always requires change. Change is always a challenge because it propels us out of a place of comfort. Just a couple of real truths I'd like to share with you. You can't improve and avoid change at the same time. We must stop looking over our shoulder at what was and start focusing on what is. I find it interesting that you usually will not find a successful person who isn't restless in some way. And to quote George Eliot, it's never too late to be what you might have been. If you are still satisfied with what you did 5 years ago, then you are not growing. Stretching sets you apart from others. Have you noticed that people seem to have become satisfied with mediocrity? This is about a personal concession to be less than your best. I find it so interesting that excellence seems to be further and further away from the accepted norms of society. Successful people set themselves apart from the crowd by going over and above what others do. As you stretch and get better, you'll be able to affect and infect others who will follow your lead, and everyone will become better as a result. Stretching can become a lifestyle. When you stop stretching, you stop growing, and perhaps even stop in some ways. I, for one, am going to continue stretching and growing as long as I'm on the planet. There is no place for me personally to stop and rest on my laurels because all living things continue growing, and it only happens by being stretched. Make stretching yourself a daily routine. Stretching gives you a shot at significance. You see, if you're going to grow yourself, you must first know yourself. What is the gap between good and great? Could it be that our ability to close that gap is directly related to our willingness to be stretched? Who are you having a positive impact on today? Who is it that you have intentionally invested in today that is making a difference in them and you? John has said, I want to make a difference. Doing something that makes a difference. At a time that makes a difference. With people who make a difference. People who are committed to stretching themselves will make a difference. The real bottom line on the law of the rubber band is, are you always looking for a better way to do what you already do? If you are, then you need to know ahead of time that it will stretch you out of your comfort zone and propel you into your desired future. The law of the rubber band may be my favorite law because as I live it out, I am never the same and I get better. So as you deal with your day-to-day situations, whether business or personal, you're going to have several painful experiences. How you choose to deal with those will determine how you positively or negatively impact your circumstances and influence those around you. What I'm saying is, when life gives you lemons, remember the tension of the rubber band and use those lemons to make lemonade. We've briefly touched on 2 of John's 15 invaluable laws of growth. Imagine doing a deeper dive into these laws in a group setting. What would happen to you if you and your organization took a deeper dive into these laws? What would that do for your personal growth? Whether you're here live on this webinar or you're on the replay, I encourage you to reach out and to let me know that you would like me to contact you to discuss mastermind groups and studying this type of material, or that you would like me to facilitate the leadership game for your organization. I am certain that this session has added value to you today, so reach out with that link on the screen there today. Thank you for your attentiveness and for also backing yourself and seeing that you are worth it for personal growth. It's been an honor being with you today. My name is Jason Ewart, a certified coach, speaker, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. Have a fantastic rest of your day.